So question 2, reflecting on your leadership journey, is there a moment when putting people and culture first felt like a bit of a gamble? And with that, has it paid off in ways that you hadn't imagined? How has that shaped the future and your business plans and goals? And with this, let's talk about where you've seen it not go right as well.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be you, but if there are examples of where it's gone wrong and reflecting on like how it could have gone better, let's bring that in. Who wants to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I was reflecting on this question, and I was like, I can't pinpoint any sort of massive like gambles, but like probably a series of small gambles of like, okay, how do you sort of take those right steps? And I think the first one, I was like, actually, I look at, we've got some absolutely amazing leaders in the business, and I think there's a number there we've taken gambles on, for who've come in quite junior, like little experience before the business, and actually taken risks in really pushing them and promoting them, and the value of that, and actually that's really investing in that culture. And then I realized actually this is my story too, and that when I joined the business, I had a handful of years of experience. It wasn't even in the business world. It was in the charity sector. And Roger and Dave took a real gamble in me in giving me sort of probably responsibility that probably I was probably not quite ready for,
Mm.
but that actually taking that risk in people, taking that gamble in people, is really key. And I think sort of something I think we've tried to continue through the business is that actually I feel like I was given this great opportunity, and that opportunity to step up, and you take it and you grab it, and that actually is one of the gambles. I think I was a gamble for Dave and Roger, and I think it's paid off. I hope it's paid off. And I think keen to continue to replicate that as well. I think that has changed definitely the way I see the world, and I think it's really easy to be like, we just need to hire in this person, but actually really keen that you build and you support people who have a lot of potential to continue to grow. And yeah, we've got some amazing examples within the business at the moment.
That's about building, like, I guess, identifying that again. Going back to that first question, just your senses telling you, like checking into, I guess, that the emotion, the feeling of who's doing well, who's showing their ambition, who's giving the energy. Like I think there's a lot around energy and drive, and opening the door is kind of that the meritocracy sometimes of they're like, well, let's give this person a chance. And you talked about coaching earlier, coach them to succeed. Like that's so important. Yeah, I think it's for me then acknowledging how do you kind of create, and you talked about Josh the ladder that then you create and give people the opportunity. That kind of creates more ambition, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's no better signal to the company that you're promoting within and you're investing with the people in their own kind of growth journey within the company. And often I think a lot of the kind of frustration with some teams is that they see that happening from outside without any sort of conversation or consultation. So I think just signposting the fact that there's huge opportunities for growth if you want to go there with the company, and we're going to support that, and we're going to look internally before anywhere else, really.
What about, obviously there's that, we're talking about scaling a business, and 100, that's quite a sizable organization already. And there's an element of protecting that culture that you've created or enhancing it, developing the maturity of it. And obviously the risk of the pace in which you scale can, I guess, potentially damage that. How have you, is it something you've been thinking about at Glean?
So definitely been a core part of what I've thought about through the years. And so what in the 10 years I've been there, we've grown from 10 to now 110. And through that you definitely have a number of different stages of growth, and each of those have their real unique challenges and their unique ways of how you've got to approach them to develop that culture. And I think it's not always about absolutely retaining everything from what you did. What worked for us when we were 10 people was not going to work for us when we were 30, let alone when we were 50, let alone when we passed the 100 mark. And so it's that humility to both try retain the great bits, evolve the other bits through that, and how do you get that right? And we've definitely not got that right throughout that, but I think one of the benefits of being bootstrapped is we've probably grown a lot more steadily. So I think that's about 25% year on year.
All right.
And we've had a few points which have been sort of slightly faster, and probably those years I wish we probably had probably pulled back a little bit.
Right.
Because again, I think that change of I think 1 year we grew over 60% in 1 year, and that really had sort of a number of challenges. Definitely was a challenging year for us as a business. There was also when the pandemic hits, which probably added to that of how do you continue to hold those hold the company together in a single culture. And I think it is that continually asking that question of yourself, sort of what is helping you going forward. And so there's always things which you can't retain, and like there's bits of the past that I'm like, oh, that used to be really good, but also there's other bits where I'm like, actually it's so much, we can achieve so much more with the team we have now and the impact we can have, as well as then you can embrace a much broader range of people. You can really sort of achieve a lot more as a wider group as well.
I was about to say, the opportunity for growth isn't just about increasing ARR. It's about actually bringing new perspectives into the business. Absolutely. And diversifying thought and all those sorts of things. So, there'll always be a part where you kind of mourn for the simplicity of the past, but equally, there's so much more kind of that a bigger team can bring, and that's quite exciting.
You mentioned that diversity, and it's something that Glean have really lent into on all aspects, and you hosted an event last year about it, and it really opened my eyes to the importance of that. There's given what we do and my motivations around how I work with organizations, that the importance of diversity and inclusion is up there for me. But I think the picture that you and the story that you told about that, for how Glean have spot that, truly opened my eyes about it. Can you just tell me a little bit about that and how you welcome it, and again that openness to discuss it? Because I think your team reflected that so positively, but also highlighted the challenges around it as well.
That panel you're referring to was a neurodiversity panel, right? And it was members of Glean, but also a few external people as well. I think we had Alex Craven from the Data City, who talked about leadership with ADHD and so on. So I think the key thing there is creating an environment where people feel safe and kind of can be vulnerable with people to talk about those experiences, some of the very personal experiences. And there's that event was great. It was an amazing external event, but there's other events that we've had that are internal events where we've had members of the team talk about kind of their challenges, their history. We had an amazing talk on autism and just talking about things that people can do to make people with autism feel more comfortable or more valued, and perspectives that I would never have thought about before. And genuinely, it was just something that completely changed my view on how to support people in that space. So I think just creating the environment where people feel like they can be vulnerable and can share those stories. We've got something was kicked off in January where there's a channel in Slack where people are sharing their goals and how they were constantly missing their goals. And all of a sudden, this sort of community of accountability kind of formed. And people are tracking goals, they're cheering each other on, they're talking about things they want to achieve, all sorts of stuff in there. And I was just amazed. I was like, there's so many places I've worked at where this would not have happened or not have been received in the way that, with the intention and sentiment. And it was kind of amazing to see. So
that's, again, it's like that's massive. Just the willingness to support each other, no matter what it is, and hold each other to account, but in a friendly way. That's talked about a lot. That's evolved because of the culture that you've created.
And it to be actually authentic. People are cheering each other on and saying, I really hope you achieve this goal, and these are the things that I can do to support that.
And that's the basics, like Dave, you mentioned around coaching. That's some of the basics of coaching, right? Holding each other to account, but in the right way. And I've been questioning this even today. I've had this conversation around coaching, when is the right time for it? I think there is a right time. There's the right way to do coaching, because I think there's a level sometimes where there can be an added pressure of setting another goal or some more actions. How does that, how that then fits in and amongst the goals that you might have already set, or figuring out how you reprioritize. So there's a real skill to that. But then when that evolves naturally, and people are kind of coming together, like community. It's one of the basics around culture. Maslow's hierarchy talks about like connectivity and community. It's the thing that, again, going back to mental health, that's the thing that is super important to be well. So
it can't be mandated coaching either. Like you can't really, people want to progress in their own way, or and that's the problem with a lot of the traditional approach to learning and kind of coaching within companies. It's kind of like, we have this budget, you should spend it. We have this person you can use, and you have to use them this year or something that's not really the right way to do it. It's actually trying to support their way of learning and making sure that because not everyone wants to learn that way. They might be introvert, extrovert. They might not want to do public speaking. They might, so there's loads of different like approaches to that.
And I think one thing, I think, to build on that point about the that Slack channel, I think for me where I've seen the great things that come from the company in terms of the culture and fostering diversity have definitely been from people feeling open to be able to do that type of thing, to be able to suggest, actually, I'd love to do this. And I think though I believe we've still got a way to go on our journey in terms of how we could be more diverse as a business, I believe that openness, that allowing everyone to have a voice, that ensuring that people feel comfortable to be able to raise things, making sure that you don't treat people who are in more senior roles differently. And something came up this week, and I was like, look, I really don't want you to treat anyone in the executive differently to how you treat someone else. We should all be treating each other with respect regardless, but like they shouldn't be treated any differently. And is that, how do you break down those barriers for everyone to feel like they can bring their full selves to work? And therefore then you can create those spaces that people feel like, actually I do belong, and that piece of, actually this is somewhere I feel I can belong and be part of and bring myself to. And that is so important as well in terms of doing your best work, because I think if you feel like you belong, that gives you that sense of safety, that gives you the sense of, okay, actually I can fail, I can actually drop the ball, and that's okay. Whereas if you don't feel like you belong, actually the smallest thing can feel like, okay, so I'm going to be pushed out, or I'm already on the edge and don't feel like people have got my back, or people are going to support me. And I think for me, in terms of that, how you foster diversity, because I don't think it's something you can just go and like make happen. It's really something that has to be nurtured, really comes from that place of accepting people where they're at, and giving them a voice to be able to bring themselves to the workplace.
Yeah, I like that concept of it's a living, breathing thing. Like you can't create that. You just need to support this thing that's happening. And it's going to happen regardless.
It grows naturally.
I've not even mentioned the House Bank or the Gleam Bandits either, which is also another exceptional side.
Maybe we should get that in the end. Okay.
Do you need a new jingle doing, by any chance?
I do. Yeah, I could do with it. All right, so wrapping up question 2 then. Reflecting on your leadership journey, is there a moment when putting people and culture first felt like a gamble but paid off in ways you hadn't imagined? Big thing that came out of that was respect and fostering diversity. We kind of naturally led onto it, but yeah, like they were the 2 big things for me. What about it for you guys?
I think on that respect thing, you can't, like trust, respect it's earned. It's not something that you can just kind of say something and it clicks. And back to your point, we're spending a lot of the time investing in fair policy and fair guidance to everyone in the company to make sure that, the respect is earned through equal treatment of staff, regardless of their position in the company. And just leading with that action and making sure that if you we're a growing company, we have to update policy sometimes, and if we do that, we rationalize it with that it's fair for everyone. It's not an exception to the rule. And I think that sort of thing is super important. It's a big indicator to staff that you care about the staff holistically. It's not edge cases. It's not trying to create specialisms. It's important
to show it. Don't just talk about it.
Really do it.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, there's, not one I've mentioned, but I think one other thing that, keen to share as part of our journey is more than 50% of our revenue now comes from the US, but we are still 100% UK business. And that was probably a bit of a gamble in terms of, do we go and set up a US office? And there could have been something that's sort of quite ego driven, that feels like great. Let's go in. We're going into the US. We're going to have an office out there. We're going to have staff out there. And actually, it's one of the decisions which I look back and actually that we have been able to achieve what we've done with staff from the UK, I think has really helped foster that culture. Mean we're able to build a coherent culture. And I think a bit of a gamble, because I think a lot of people told me through the journey, oh no, you need to go and set up the US office. No, you should go and do that. And I think at every point we're like, actually, if we can do it from the UK, we're going to be able to foster the culture that we want in a more effective way. And I think that sort of cost of actually going and really setting up another business in another place and being able to take a culture with you is I think so challenging, that actually something that I'm glad we've not had to quite tackle just yet, though I imagine it will be in our future. But really keen that when we do that, we're in a place that we're not just thinking about that from a business perspective, we are thinking about that from a culture perspective as well.
It's a really important point, that, because having had experience where the other office has been set up in tandem, before you've really helped, establish that identity and establish what your culture is, and you can't really distill it down into I wish you could, into like a pack to give the US team. But, if you try and pull that trigger too soon, you end up with a situation where that culture in the US office could actually start to really override some of the things that you've spent a lot of time building in the UK. And I'm not saying it's American versus UK. I'm saying it's more about that growth and how you grow is a really, it needs to be very carefully considered.
Mindful of how you protect it. And it's more than a poster on the wall, right? And an employee handbook on the intranet.
Yeah, that never works.
Really?
Wish it did.